Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinar series. As we continue to organize webinars based on various domains, let me quickly introduce you all to today's session. Today's session is on Integrated ALM with Cross-Tools Reporting, and it's a pleasure to talk about two distinguished speakers today, Mr. Puranjoy Chatterjee, who is the Director, Product Solutions, Kovair Software Inc., and Shomunil Chaudhary, who is the Solutions Specialist, Kovair Software. I'll quickly introduce Mr. Chatterjee. Puranjoy has been working with the Kovair ALM product for the last several years. He currently heads the solution team for the Omnibus product line at Kovair and has been working on multi-vendor tool integrations for the last 5 years. He has been involved in architecture design and development of Kovair's Omnibus integration platform. He has helped many companies discover the benefits of integrated ALM by designing, building, and deploying solutions for them. He has represented Kovair at many public events as a technical expert on tools integration. With that, I come to Mr. Shomunil Chaudhary. Shomunil has been associated with Kovair for more than 6 years, being involved in defining and developing solutions for Kovair customers. His main focus is to provide on-site and offshore consulting services for complete ALM and Omnibus integration, solution implementation, and managing projects for Kovair products for the customers. All the attendees must already be aware of the process. The presentation will go on for about 45 to 50 odd minutes, and both Mr. Chatterjee and Mr. Chaudhary, they'll be taking up questions for the last 10 or 15 odd minutes. So attendees, it's a request. You can start sending in your questions from 5:30 onwards, and I'll be assigning the questions to the speakers. So without any further delay, let me hand over the presentation to Mr. Chatterjee. Puranjoy, over to you.
Thanks, Shilagna. Hello, everyone. I'm Puranjoy Chatterjee from Kovair, and I welcome all of you to this webinar on Integrated ALM with Cross-Tool Reporting. I have with me Shomunil, who's a colleague for the last 6 years, and he will be going through the demo, product demo at the end of the presentation. But before that, I'll be giving the presentation. So let me start, and all of you please remember to post your questions, and we'll take up the questions in the last 10-15 minutes. And in case you have or you come up with more questions, you can mail them to sales@kovair.com or visit our website kovair.com and put your feedback over there. So this is going to be today's overview. We are going to discuss about the following topics, like what is integrated ALM, how can it be implemented, what are the benefits of integrated ALM, how does it produce better quality software, how can we get cross-tool reporting using this, how does this help in project execution, and what does Kovair offer? So following the discussion on these topics, Shomunil will show you the product demo, where he will show you the cross-tool reporting and other integration features. So going to the first slide, what is integrated ALM? Integrated Application Lifecycle Management, or ALM, is a totally integrated set of tools and processes that help organizations manage the complete life cycle of application development. So it's not a single tool. Integrated ALM is basically a combination of all the tools, all the processes, and of course the people who make it happen. So it's all about making some automation, enabling people to use the system efficiently, reducing redundancy, and all these things. It integrates different teams, activities, platforms, tools, and processes. So in today's world, software is developed in a very distributed environment, where we often get to see that the development team is somewhere in India, the testing team is in China, the marketing team or the product team is in USA. So an integrated ALM environment enables people to collaborate efficiently without any wastage of time, without redoing steps, and getting to know each other's artifacts whenever they are changing. People get to know that immediately. And ALM spans the entire scenario from creating of the idea to the end of the application's life. So it's not just about developing the software, but it's about developing the idea itself, breaking it down, creating a business proposal for the software, then developing the software, then putting it live, going into the operations phase where several smaller SDLC cycles take place so that refinements can be done until the entire application comes to an end where it's no longer required or the business case has become obsolete and it's discontinued from the company. So next, how can we implement integrated ALM? So there are three options. First one is a point-to-point integration where you can use the best-of-breed multi-vendor tools and design your own handcrafted integration code between the pair of tools. But the problem here is you cannot scale to more than a few tools. So point-to-point works fine as long as you're integrating 2 or 3 tools. But whenever it goes beyond 3 tools, it becomes very complex to maintain it. Tools often get upgraded, the APIs change. So in case of any of these changes, you would need to work on different code items so that the integration is maintained. The next option is single vendor all-in-one solutions. So some of the larger vendors, tool vendors, they provide all-in-one solutions where you can use all the tools from the same vendor, and each integration is based on the vendor's guideline of usage. So all these tools provided by the vendors are integrated with each other and the vendor does all the integration. But the problem here is that you are losing the liberty to choose your best of breed tools. So in reality, it's not true that companies will be using all tools from a single vendor. It doesn't work that way. So some of the companies produce better tools for testing, some others produce better tools for development, some more for requirements. So in an ideal situation, we would like you to use the best of breed tools, not compromise on that front just because you need the integrations. And of course you would have less control over the integration rules because the vendor does all the integration. You don't get to define the integrations. And the third option is an ALM integration middleware where a third-party vendor is providing only the integration tool, and this gives you the liberty to choose the best of breed multi-vendor tools, and you'll get the adapters or connectors which will connect these tools to the middleware. So these adapters are also supplied by the ALM integration vendor, and the customer can develop their own adapters too, because most of these platforms, they have their open APIs. And integration rules are not coded into the system. They are typically left open to be defined by the customer. So you get your freedom. You can implement your own use cases here without any problem.
Puranjoy, if you could
Next,
use...
we move on to benefits of...
Sorry, Puranjoy. If you could use the mic really closely, your voice is breaking up in between a little.
Okay, Srilanga. So is it better now?
Yeah, this is perfect.
Okay, thanks. Okay, the next slide is benefits of integrated ALM. So first benefit is that the data visibility across tools. So all the different tool users, they should be able to see the relevant data from the other tools while they are sitting in their own tool of preference. They should not require to hop around between the tools so that they get a view of the other data. Next one is traceability between objects in different tools. So when you're using a single vendor solution, it's often possible to create traceability relations between different artifacts. But if you're using cross-vendor tools, it's really difficult to maintain traceability between objects that are being managed in other tools. So integrated ALM should be able to provide you that. Then there should be some process automation across tools. So it should enable the customer to enforce consistent processes across the tool boundaries. And lastly, it should be able to produce dashboards and reports which span across the data coming in from all the tools. So it should be able to produce real-time metrics and KPI of related data from the various tools. Next, how does it impact quality? So first of all, the sole aim of integrated ALM is to improve the quality of the final deliverables. So two aims I would say: first to improve the quality, and next to produce faster. So let's look at the quality part of it. So how it improves the quality? First, it provides the right context for every stage of ALM. So for example, a designer would definitely want to see what are the changes happening in the original requirements while he's doing the design. So it doesn't help if the changed requirement arrives to him after a day, because he's already lost the few hours that he has put in while doing the design. So changes should appear immediately. And integration ensures code quality and performance throughout the lifecycle process. So the quality of work here is validated at every stage, and defects are caught during the process instead of at the end of it. So defect creation can begin as soon as people can start delivering in small iterations. Before that also, the other artifacts like requirements, design, these things also are reviewed immediately, and any changes happening are reviewed back and approved. So that cycle gains in speed whenever integrated ALM is being used. Then you get to gain greater insight. So while the project is in progress, you get to see what is the quality of the current release that we are working on. So all these matrices, they come out in the dashboards, and you should be able to act based on those matrices. Which part is not stable yet, or what corrective actions are needed. These information or these pointers should be available during the execution, and not after a couple of days or at the end of the week when somebody aggregates the data and sends a status report. It's too late by that time. This thing should happen immediately, and that reduces the cycle time by a lot. Then again, the best practice processes can be implemented across the tools. So you can make sure that people, although their different teams are using different tools, they are following the central processes that are defined by the organization. Then you can overcome the challenges for globally distributed development. As I was saying earlier, that somebody is in China, someone in India, someone in US. It's if you're using integrated ALM, they all remain synchronized all throughout. So within a minute's difference, all artifacts are updated in all the systems, and everyone should be at sync all the time. Then you should be able to enable collaboration between the stakeholders. So any task created for a particular person should appear in his tool of preference immediately, and as soon as he completes the task or marks the progress in the task, it should be visible to the other stakeholders for whom it is relevant. Then provide real-time actionable metrics. So as I was saying, if a program manager gets to see that one of the projects he is handling, the requirements are not stable, they are continuously changing in version, he can immediately call up the project manager and let him know that there's something wrong in the requirements process, and why don't you take corrective actions, otherwise the project is going to go out of hand. So these kind of decision-making data should be available to all the stakeholders. Then managing change with confidence. So change is one of the biggest troublemakers when we are executing projects. It is very important for us to, detect the changes, the impacts that it would have on the related items, and automatically notify the concerned people so that there's no risk of people working on obsolete items. Because doing that is actually just, a wasteful activity. Next, we come to cross-tool reporting. So, how does an integrated ALM or a, ESB or a middleware, how does it solve your cross-tool reporting problems? First and foremost, the integration middleware is aware of all the events that are occurring in the tools. So whenever a requirement is getting modified, a new test case is getting added, a new code file is being delivered by the developer, all these events pass through the middleware. And people are aware of what is happening in which tool. The system is aware when you are creating a report, it should get all this latest information while doing the reports. The middleware should be able to capture the relevant data from the connected tools. So as all this data passes through the middleware, it's just a matter of configuration whether you want to collect these data and put them in the reports or not. There should be an interface present that should allow people to create the reports they need. So there can be a huge volume of data here since all the artifacts from all the tools will be flowing through this system. So people should get the flexibility to design their reports only based on the meaningful data that is coming through. The reports and dashboards should automatically reflect the current data. So once it is designed, when they are executed in runtime, it should be just a matter of clicking a mouse button and you should get to see the reports with the latest data over there. So what are the benefits we get out of this? First, all the data is captured live from the systems of record. So this data is not made up by someone. It's not aggregated by someone. It's coming out live from the systems. So the actual system of records, they are storing the data. Those events are coming into the middleware. It's being processed and stored over there for reporting. Reports are based on real-time data coming directly from the tool. So again, as I said, you don't need a manual intervention to collect the data from individual tools and put them on an Excel sheet and make it look fancy and decorated and then present it to the manager who has asked for it. That's not required. The manager can just click on a button and get the report himself. Then no time is wasted in manually aggregating the data. So that's exactly what I was saying right now. And then no scope of human error. So we all know that errors happen, especially when you're handling a lot of data from discrete tools which come in different formats, and you have to copy paste them and do all those things. So human errors do occur in those steps, and being able to avoid that would be really helpful. And moreover, these reports produced, they are available anytime, anywhere through web access. So you just need to open up a web application and fetch that particular report. It's going to be generated with the latest data. And this allows managers to quickly identify the problem areas and actually take some action on it, rather than going and asking each leader or department head that what is happening, where are we standing in terms of requirements, or how far is the design complete. So all these data will be visible to the managers. If they think that some action needs to be done, they can do it right away. So how it helps in project execution. So if I look at the different roles, so I've just listed a few of them. There can be more roles, and they all have something to gain from this. So the program manager, he will be able to see the rolled up reports across multiple projects. That would let him identify which project is lagging behind or looks risky, and he can take corrective actions. The project manager gets to see the live reports with aggregated data from all tools. So would be interested in more granular reports where he can see what are the different phases, how they're going, and so on. And exact status of different teams working on different areas, maybe working from different geographical locations. So any corrective action required, again, the project manager can immediately jump onto it. He can get the live actionable metrics for each phase. If one of the defects get resolved, that should also reflect back in the project manager's dashboard. The designer gets to see the changes in requirements or user stories. They should be visible immediately to him. The developer gets to see the full context, upstream and downstream. So that means that he or she should be able to see the requirements, stories, design elements based on which they are doing the development, plus the test cases, test execution status, all these things should also be visible in his IDE. So once he gets to see the test cases, he or she will immediately know that, okay, so there's a test case for this and I don't think I have covered that in my code, so let me go back and make this change. Then changes in artifacts get reflected automatically. So, right, if the requirements change or the stories change, then this guy needs to make some change in the code. So the sooner he gets to know, the better for him, better for the project team, and better for the organization. The later in the cycle he gets to know this, it becomes more expensive for the company. What is in there for the tester? Again, the full context is available inside the test management tool. So immediately he or she will get to know if a requirement has changed, if some new code files have been added to the system. So that should spark something in his mind that, okay, so this code file has been added, this is the purpose, so this might impact these areas. Let me go and test out those areas once again. Alright, so what is the Kovair solution? What does Kovair have to offer in this space? So Kovair offers a platform and services for integrating multi-vendor tools for a unified software development environment. So the goal here is to create this unified development environment where people get an integrated view of all the ALM tools. They get the central repository based on which they can define the traceability relations, check the impacts, do tracking, reporting, and dashboards. Then there should be, the Kovair solution provides a good process automation solution. So you can define processes for each artifact, and these processes can span across the tool boundaries. They generate automated tasks for individual users based on their roles, and the users are expected to complete those tasks in their tool of choice and then get back to Kovair where the central process is being orchestrated. And the integration technology, we call it Omnibus Integration Platform. So it is a state-of-the-art technology based on SOA and Enterprise Service Bus pattern. And we have the connectors for all major tools in the market. And the list of connectors is growing rapidly based on what our customers are asking for. This is the Kovair Omnibus Architecture from a very high level. So in the center you see the main orchestration engine called Kovair Omnibus. There are adapters which connect them to the individual tools. You can see there are tools from different vendors here, IBM Requisite Pro, CA Clarity. So these are just sample tools here, Microsoft PFS. And you've got the Kovair web application which is used to do the configuration of the integration rules. And over here you have some IDEs, that is Eclipse and Visual Studio, which is which are the most popular IDEs for the developers. So there are some plugins here which will allow you to see all the data from all these tools right from within your plugin. And it's not only seeing the data, but you can actually edit it, add new items, delete items right from your IDE. And on the right hand side, we see that out of the consolidated data that is going through this Omnibus integration platform, we can use that data to create traceability, create a lot of reports, dashboards, all these things. And these dashboards and reports always reflect the latest data as and when they are changing from all these source tools. Going to the next slide, this shows the current ecosystem of tools that are connected to the Kovair Omnibus integration platform. So we have 40 plus tool integrations today, and you can see that we have integrations with different tools from requirements management silo, then designing, RSA, Visual Studio, Enterprise Architect, configuration management. There are 6 tools supported, including tools like ClearCase, TFS, RTC, and similarly multiple tools for most of the areas. There are some tools worth mention here, which is like Salesforce and Remedy, ServiceNow, which are more like ITSM tools, but they're also being integrated through Omnibus. So that brings me to the end of my presentation, and we'll move on to Shomunil. I'll make him the presenter who will go ahead with the product demo. So give me a second, let me change the presenter to Shomunil.
Thank you so much, Puranjoy, for the presentation.
Thanks, Shilagna.
Okay, thanks Puranjoy for your presentation. Hi everybody. So after this presentation, I'll take you into some live action and show you in reality what Puranjoy was trying to explain through his PPT. So to do that, I'll take you through a real-time scenario where in a typical organization, people are using different tools to manage their own work. And as people are working in each of their tools, how the data is getting accumulated into a central repository, and from there different stakeholders, the management, the business analysts, the testers, the developers are getting different kinds of matrix reports, and how it is helping them in doing their work. So that's the typical goal of my part of the presentation, and I'll start by creating a requirement in Requisite Pro. So as an analyst, I'll go and create a new requirement in Requisite Pro. So let me add a new requirement over here. So let's assume this is a functional requirement, and let's say the title goes like request for a lookup field. I'll also enter some brief description. And apart from the title and the description, I can go ahead and put some attributes as well. Let's say the priority of this requirement is high and the status is proposed. And with that, let me save this particular requirement. Now, as this requirement is being saved by the business analyst, this requirement flows into the central repository of Kovair Omnibus, and from there, tasks are being generated for the planning phase for the project manager to estimate the different tasks that are being automatically created for this particular requirement. At the same time, this particular requirement is also forwarded to Rational Software Architect, where the designer will be creating a class and associate this requirement to. Additionally, it also moves to the testing phase, where it will be using Quality Center to show you how this particular requirement is automatically generating tests, and the tester will be executing those. So quickly doing that, here is MS project, and let's start the planning phase. So you can see the Kovair menu add in over here. So let me do a quick connect so that it brings in the tasks. And 3 tasks will be created for 3 different stakeholders: the design for the architect, the tester will have the testing task, and the developer will have the development task. So let's refresh and let's wait for the task to load. So Kovair Omnibus is actually an event action mechanism by means of which once an event is being occurred, the data is pushed onto the Omnibus engine, and based on that the data is being sent to the target tool with respect to the actions that the way you define. And here you can see the design task has already arrived. Let's refresh it for a while. I think the MS project is a bit slower, so just let's give it a little bit of time. In the meantime, what I'll do is, as the tasks are getting created, I'll quickly go into Rational Software Architect, where the designer will be designing a class with respect to this particular requirement. So this is the Rational Software Architect workspace that I'm using, and let's create a quick class over here. So let me create a class, and let's name it as lookup underscore class, and let's add it to Omnibus. And let's save this. So once we add it to Omnibus, this becomes an item under the Rational Design Element object. Now if I refresh the screen, you will be able to see this particular design element under this list. Let me expand this, and here you can find the lookup class. Now the next action that I will do is I'll associate this design element to the requirement that I entered from Requisite Pro. So I add a link, and I set up a traceability relationship with the Requisite Pro requirement, and this allows me to load up the list that is coming from Requisite Pro, the requirements that I'm having at Requisite Pro. And here is the requirement that I'm having, and let me link it here. Once done, let me save this. So as far as the design is concerned, I'm done. And with that, now let me go back and refresh the MS project once more. And let's see how it goes. So let me refresh the screen. The design is already there. Okay, so the design, the development, and the QA task has been arrived. What I'll do is I'll quickly enter some estimated started and a finish date for each of these. So let's say the design task is starting from 26, and it's going to be till 30th. Let's say the development is going to start from 30th and will be continuing till 4th. And finally, the QA task will be starting from, let's say, 7th, and it's going to be till let's say 11th. Okay, so with that you can also update the task status as well, and with that let's save this. So you can find that automatically once we created a requirement, the task got created, was pushed into the MS project automatically for the project manager to estimate it. Now once he has done it, this will be taken back into the Kovair repository for the task management purpose. So as the design phase has been completed now, I'll go into the Kovair application to complete my task as the designer that John is being assigned. So let me go over there and let me log in as John. So this is the Kovair ALM tool where you can manage various objects, and which actually is the central repository and helps you viewing all kinds of reports and dashboards based on the data coming in from all the various tools. So over here in the task management system, we will be able to see the updated information of all the tasks that we have done from Microsoft Project. So you can see all those tasks have arrived, and here is the task, the design task by John Manager, which goes in and updates some actual time with respect to this task. So Kovair has an inbuilt timesheet management system with respect to each of the tasks that the user creates, and they can log in the time with respect to the tasks that they are doing in all the various tools. So this is the
So Shomanil, I think we are experiencing some lag, so can you go a little slower because the screens are not refreshing while you're speaking. So I think we are now seeing the task page, so you can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So this is the task detail screen, and you can find the plan started and the plan finished. Whatever information that we updated from MS Project is getting reflected from Kovair application. And as the designer, since my job is done, I'll go into the time entry section and will enter the time that I've done. I've invested in designing this particular class for this particular requirement. So I've clicked on this add time entries, and here is the timesheet page that I'll be entering the time. So the design task for request for lookup page, and let's say I enter some time. Let's say I invested 2 hours with respect to this task, and I'm done. So I submit and come back to my task, and I complete my task. So here is the complete task button, and that helps me to mark my task as complete. So once the design phase is being done, now let's get into the development phase, and where I am working as a Java developer into Eclipse, where I'll be checking in a file and will show you how a developer checks in a file into Subversion and a build is getting triggered. So the entire development cycle. So let me quickly add a new script file. So new class. Now let's name it a lookup class. Let's finish this. I already have a ready-made script along with me. Let's paste this. Let me rename the name once more. And also I also have a method over here. So let's say I name it as lookup method. Okay. Now here is my script file, and over here before moving forward with the script file, let me also tell you that we have a plugin for Eclipse. So from the Eclipse plugin, you can see all the various tools that the different stakeholders are working in. Now, as a developer, I would like to see what are the requirements that are getting gathered in Requisite Pro, or what are the requirements that I'll be working in. So he doesn't need to log into Requisite Pro to get the view of that. So he can directly view the requirements from the Eclipse environment. He can also add, modify, and do all the respective stuff from here as well. So as you can see, setting up the traceability relationship or modifying a requirement are all available. Similarly, if you want to see what are the design packages getting done at Rational Software Architect, or what are the bugs that are getting created in Jira, those things are also can be done through the Eclipse environment through the Kovair plugin. So as I define the file, over here, this particular code is still private to me. Now, if I want to make it traceable and shareable for the different developers, what I do is I add it to Omnibus, and this creates a new method, class, and file in the Omnibus Explorer. So let me save this, and now if I go into the Eclipse method, you will find there is a new method that's been created called the lookup method, and this becomes an object item under the Eclipse method entity. Now if I further drill down this lookup method, you will find it's linked to a class, and further drilling down this lookup class, I get to see the actual file, the Eclipse file. So you can find here is the file, and this is the method that this particular lookup script code file is being having associated to, so that different developers can now associate it to their own requirements as well. Now I go back, and now once I'm done, let's close this, and as a developer, when I'm done, what I'll do is I'll check in the file into Subversion. So let's save this team, and I directly check in the file from here itself. So as I commit, let me take back to see what is the requirement ID that got generated for the requirement that I submitted. So this is the requirement entity list that captures all the requirements that are coming in from various sources. In this case, it is Requisite Pro. So here the requirements are gathered from various aspects, and 330 is the requirement ID. So at the time of checking in the file, the developer specifies the requirement ID for letter reference, that which is the file that he checked in due to the implementation of this requirement. So over here now, as the file is being checked in, I go into Hudson, and there is an automatic bill that is being triggered, that will be triggered due to the checking of this file. So the automatic build is automatically getting triggered. You can see build number 199, and it's getting refreshed. The page is getting refreshed, and you can see build number 199 has been created 10 seconds ago. And going into the console output, let me show you. Here is the file that we created in Eclipse, and here the bill is showing as successful. So the status of the bill is showing as successful, and here is the class, the file that we worked from. Okay, now the development phase is being done, and now let's move on to the testing phase, where I'll show you Quality Center users. The testers are using Quality Center for the testing purpose. So here is the requirement, and on refreshing, here is my requirement from Requisite Pro. Now, to ease out the testers creating the test plan with respect to this particular test requirement, what we do is we automatically created the test plan. So here is the test plan. You can see we automatically established the relationship with the requirement. That's what you can see from here. Also, in the same name, we created a test lab. We created a test lab and request for a lookup field, and we also established a traceability relationship with the test plan to the test lab. So the tester is just left with one particular action, that with respect to this particular test case, he just goes in and creates some design steps. So let's say check integer values. That's one step. And let's say check for numbers. Let's say check for alphanumeric text. Okay, so both the things are being done, and now let's save this and let's go in to run this particular test. So we quickly go and run this. Let's say QC underscore run underscore lookup field. We begin the run. The steps are automatically being created, and based on the manual testing, we found actually it's not working, so we failed both steps. Now there is a scenario where Quality Center is unable to create a defect automatically on the failure of a test run. So using the Kovair Omnibus functionality, we are directly creating a defect automatically from our Omnibus engine, and we are pushing it to Quality Center as well as to Jira for the defect tracking. So under the defects, we will be able to see the defect in Quality Center. So it has not yet arrived. May take a little bit of time. In the meantime, let's go to Jira also to check it out whether Jira has the defect. So let's refresh and check the appropriate filter. This is the Omnibus Integration Project Bugs. That's the filter that we are using. It has not come as of yet. So in the meantime, what we do is, as the developer, let me go ahead and finish my task that we worked on. Before going that, let me just have a quick refresh of the screen once more. So not yet arrived. So since it's taking a little bit of time in coming in, let's move on to the John Manager's side and show you the traceability with respect to this artifacts that has created as of yet, and maybe you can find that particular defect. It can automatically be shown from here. So over here is a traceability view that the managers are very interested in. So this shows all the different artifacts that are coming in from all the different places, getting accumulated, the links are getting shown, so it's really an interesting thing to watch. So that's the requirement ID 330. So we just loading up the traceability view for this particular requirement only. And you can also see the source of each of these artifacts. So you can see the requisite pro icon over here. Drilling down, we'll get to see all the different artifacts that got created under the requirement. On one hand, we'll be able to see the genset. On the other, we'll be able to see the tasks. These are getting linked with all the planning information that came in from Microsoft Project. We can also see the test sets. Drilling down the test set, we would be able to see the test case. And you can see the test case has failed due to the failure of the test run. Now, drilling down the test case, we find the associated test run. The test run has failed, and underneath we get to see the defect. So here is the defect that you can see, and now into the development, the chain set will have the code file associated to it, and further drilling down the code file, the chain set would also have the Hudson job linked to it. So here is the code file, the job, and under the job you will get to see the bill. Okay, and finally the design element as well. So now I'll take you to the dashboards. Where the different management groups are looking into the various aspects of each of these phases of life cycle. So let's go into the requirements phase, where the business analyst or the project managers are looking into various aspects that are getting tracked in the requirements analysis or the testing phase. So Kovair allows you to create various kinds of graphical as well as textual reports. See, this is a sample which shows the trend of submission versus approval of requirements. So you can also have a line chart with respect to this trend. Each of these graphs of requirements, which shows whether the requirements are covered by test or not. Here is the test coverage, whether the requirements are covered with test or not. And each of these reports are having drill down capabilities. So if I click over here, it actually loads the list of those requirements that are coming up from the actual set of records. And from the list of records, you can actually navigate to the record that you are working on. So execution of the status of type is another example where drill down multi-level pie chart can be demonstrated and configured in Kovair. This is another requirement distribution where you are seeing the different source of requirements coming from various tools. And on the right you are seeing the requirements distribution by status. Now taking you to the project health report, a level higher, where the program manager is keeping track of multiple projects and he is interested to see how the different projects are getting worked on and the status of the projects with respect to schedule, with respect to budget, and also with respect to various kinds of metrics that are getting tracked from the various phases. So these, let's say these are the two projects. So one is the Kovair ALM Studio and another is a sample, another project getting worked on side by side. And you can see though these two projects are reflecting that they are not on schedule, but still they can find that these are still under control with respect to budget. Cost of quality, the defect delivered density are some of the metrics that you can automatically create in Kovair by means of the formula expressions that are available from the front end itself. Without writing a single line of code, these kind of complex formulas can be created on the fly. Similarly, you can see some cross-project average matrix of quality. The pre-deployment and the post-deployment defects count can also be shown. So, the only report that we cannot include it in a dashboard is a Word report. And let me just give you a glance of a Word report. That is allows you to generate a full-fledged Word document on the fly based on the various artifacts that are getting accumulated from various tools. A sample is, let's say, organizations are creating the SRS and the MOD kind of documents very much, and they are printing those documents, sharing those documents with the various stakeholders, and these documents are quite time-consuming to create. Now, Kovair, through its Word add-in, allows you to create such templates, and you can upload those templates in the application. And once those templates you execute or generate that particular template, that the one that I'm doing it actually create a full-fledged Word document from there. So let's open this up. Now, as it is taking time in loading in, one final aspect that I would also like to show is not only the quality matrix or the management is saying, you can also derive some matrix and dashboard for the development environment as well. Now let's say this is I'll come back to the Word report next time. So here we are checking the code quality matrix, and the data is coming in from SonarQube with respect to the various development phases. So let's say we are checking in the issue status, and we are checking the various status of the issues that are getting created from the code. And here is another matrix where you can see for the version 1.3 what are the common percentage or the document percentage with respect to the various coding. You can also have your Kovair Omnibus and project, and you can check out what's the severity of the issues distributed. There's a pie chart distribution. What's the API count? So these data are all coming from SonarQube, and we are integrated with SonarQube, and we are directly pulling up the data and are reflecting through the Kovair dashboards. So you can see the public undocumented API, number 2, the number of comment lines, number 7. So all this various information, it's fully loaded with. Here is an example of the code summary. Lines of code is 15, the number of classes included is 2. You can also define your complexity as well. The complexity method, the complexity class, in functions, complexity. So all these various information are all available to you with respect to the SonarQube, as the data is getting accumulated over there, and you can reflect it from the Kovair dashboard. Taking you back into the Word report, here is the generated Word report on the fly. And it's a full-fledged graphic loaded Word report, and you can see the last requirement that we added in the application. Let me update the table of contents once, and you can see over here it's automatically loaded with all the data that's coming in from all the various tools, the design elements, the tasks from Microsoft project, the quality center tasks, the change set. Let me go into the details. So here's the requirement, the design task, the development, everything, whatever I have updated are all getting reflected from the Word report. The design element, the test set, the test case, with its hierarchy, the test run, the defects. On the development, on the other hand, change set, code file, and build. With that, I conclude my product presentation, and now we are open for your questions. So Puranjoy, I hand it over to you for the questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Shomunil.
Thank you, Shomunil. So I'll check the questions here. Okay. So first question is, TFS will do these tasks alone without the help of anything. That is true. The question is from Rohit, so that is correct, but it would only apply if you are using all Microsoft tools for your entire cycle, starting from requirement to testing, defects, everything. Otherwise, if you're using cross-vendor tools, it's not going to work that way. Another question is, during a SDLC using ALM, if requirements and test cases are maintained in separate tools from different vendors, how is the requirement mapping done? Okay, so one of the ways in which it can be done is to bring the requirements down to the central tool and then map the central tools fields to the test tools fields and pass on the data. So it depends on the tool mapping, how you map the fields between one tool and another, and that should be allowed in all the ALM middleware. How it is different from other ALM tools like HP ALM. Okay, so again the question here is that are you going to go for an all-in-one solution provided by one vendor with its own defined integration rules, or are you going to use cross-tool or different tools from different vendors, the best of breed, requirements management from IBM, quality management from QC, development from Microsoft? If you're using that kind of a scenario, then again you're not going to get the same functionality from any single tool. Another question is, could you provide comparison with Omnibus versus TFS? So I just answered the question regarding TFS. It's similar to that. If you're using all Microsoft, then TFS is good. But if you're using any other different tool from a different vendor, then TFS is not going to help you get this data. Will Omnibus support Unix? Could Omnibus integrate with Git? Yes, Omnibus is already integrated with Git. We have a Git adapter, and Omnibus will support the tools no matter where they're installed. So the tools can be installed on Unix, Linux, Microsoft, wherever they're already installed. But the Omnibus platform itself needs to be installed on a Windows box. Next question is, how can we access this tool for test purpose? So you would need to contact our sales team, and they would set up evaluation for you, and you can do your testing on that. Next question is, can we implement integrated ALM for mobility project? If yes, then the kind of mobile app should be online or offline. Yeah, so it's a question of ALM doesn't depend on what kind of project you're working on, whether it's a mobility project or it's a cloud-based project. It should not matter. Omnibus is capable of integrating tools on the cloud as well as on-premise, and yes, the development tools for mobility projects are different, so you would just need to have the adapters for those tools. Another question is, can a PM enter more tasks, as by default only 3 tasks are getting created for a requirement? Okay, yes, so the PM can enter as many tasks as possible. Not only the PM, anybody can do that. It's only this specific configuration for this demo where we have configured it such a way that automatically 3 tasks are going to be created. It may be configured in such a way that nothing is created automatically and the cycle begins from MS Project itself, where people are defining a proper WBS and scheduling, doing the scheduling there, and based on that the task can flow to the different other systems where they need to be consumed and worked upon. So that brings me to the end of the questions. Let me see if I have any more. Okay, so there's another one. If a requirement is kept on hold in between once it has started, how can we handle this here? Okay, so the question here is, this entire integration middleware works in an event and action method. So once an event happens in a particular tool, you get the handle to define your conditions that okay, if this requirement is in the approved state, then you pass it on to the other tool, or if it is paused or kept on hold, then you pass that message on that this requirement is on hold, so guys, kindly stop working on this. So that information will be passed on as an update to all the other tools which are synchronized, and people should be able to view that in their own tools environment, that okay, so this requirement I was working on has just now moved to the on hold status, so let me stop working on this and do something on a different requirement. Another question is how to verify ALM user. So yes, there are screens available in the Kovair system where you can map different users from different tools, and yes, definitely the users need to be connected to the integration bus, otherwise they're not they'll be authenticated to the system, otherwise they're not going to be able to pass on their information to the other tools. Are there mail alerts sent if team members forget to enter efforts for their tasks? Yes, that can definitely be set up. So if timesheets are not being filled up in time, you can set up different policies where you can send the mail alerts if one day has passed, or maybe the finish date for the task is over and still there's no time entry for that. So those can be sent.
All right.
Will Omnibus can be customized based on requirements? Yeah.
No, you can take that last
So
question.
this will be the last question. Yeah, I'll do that. So can it be customized based on requirements? Yes, so whatever we showed today is just one particular configuration created for this demo, but it can definitely be customized to suit any use case that your company can decide to implement. So that was the last question, Silagna. Hello? Silagna, over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Puranjoy. We have run out of time. That's why we are not taking up any more questions. It's a request. All the attendees can take up the questions offline with Puranjoy and Shomunil. And also, the recording of today's webinar session will be available tomorrow on techgeek.com. And if there is any more query for the speakers, please feel free to email us. Thank you so much once again. It was a pleasure having you on board, Puranjoy and Shomunil today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shilagna. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you. Bye-bye.